There are certain moments that don't need words. No clarification. No subtitles. No formal explanation. Because that small gesture speaks too loud. And one of those moments happened again, when Jimin and Jikook, were caught on camera holding hands without hesitation, without a moment to let go, without caring who was watching. In the world of K-pop, where every move is calculated, every touch analyzed, and every second recorded by millions of eyes, holding hands is no small feat, especially when it's done by two BTS members who for years have been known to share a bond far deeper than just being bandmates. And this time, it wasn't hidden. Not behind the scenes. Not in a dark corner of the stage. This was in front of the camera. It was as if the message was intentional. As if there were an unspoken sentence hanging in the air. Jealous? Keep being jealous. Jimin and Jungkook didn't try to pull away when the camera closed in. There was no reflexive pulling away. There was no panic. Instead, there was calm, even comfort, as if holding hands was the most natural thing in the world. It's as if the outside world, netizen opinions, and skeptical whispers are no longer relevant. And that's where things get interesting. Because if this was just a coincidence, why not let it go? If this was just fan service, why not be over the top and theatrical? If this was just a fad, why did it last so long? Jikook isn't just any duo. They've grown together, arguing, laughing, getting jealous, protecting, and rediscovering each other through various stages of life. From competitive trainees to global artists who know how the camera works. That's precisely why this simple gesture feels so bold. The hand-holding isn't a show-off, nor is it a cheap provocation. It feels more like a silent statement. We don't need to explain anything. And the fan reaction? Explosive. Timelines are filled with the same question, repeated in multiple languages. Why don't they care anymore? The answer may be simple or profound, because there comes a point in a person's life when the validation of others is no longer a primary need. When a cherished relationship is more important than a constantly shifting opinion. And Jimin and Jungkook seemed like two people who had reached that point. Their gazes in that moment didn't help calm the situation. There was no awkward laughter. There was no emotional distance. All there was synchronization, a small movement that felt like an old habit. As if their hands had sought each other so often, they'd forgotten the world was watching. And to those who were annoyed, who sneered, who said, "This is overkill," or "It's just an assumption," that moment felt like the calmest yet most piercing answer. No rebuttal. No defense. Just presence. Jikook didn't say, "This is love." They didn't say, "This is nothing." They just existed together as they were. And perhaps that's what made so many people uncomfortable. Because when two people no longer try to convince anyone, they become untouchable. Jealousy no longer wobbles. Gossip no longer bothers. Even denial feels futile. The hand-holding was brief, but its impact was long-lasting. It left a mark on fans' minds. It rekindled old discussions. It reignited emotions that had been tucked away. And most importantly, it demonstrated one thing that was hard to deny. Jimin and Jungkook were comfortable with each other, even as the world watched. Did that mean something more? Or did it mean they no longer cared how it was interpreted? Maybe the answer doesn't matter. Because ultimately, that moment wasn't about proving anything. It was about two people choosing to stay close, stay connected, and stay true to their feelings, amidst a spotlight that never went out. Because after the moment passed, what remained wasn't just a video snippet or a blurry photo, but an emotional echo that continued to swirl in fans' heads. Interestingly, Jimin and Jungkook never returned to the conversation. There was no clarification on Weverse, no defensive jokes, no attempts to set the record straight. The silence, in fact, felt louder than 1,000 words. In an industry typically quick to cover up rumors, this silence felt deliberate, or at least no longer avoided. And that's where many people began to notice something important. Jikook's behavior was different. In the past, they often seemed to hold back when the camera got too close. There would be a small distance that suddenly appeared, a laugh that sounded forced to lighten the mood. But this time, not so. The hand-holding just flowed naturally, like a natural reflex. Like two people who had forgotten that the outside world was counting down the seconds. Some fans called this the comfort phase. A phase where closeness no longer needed to be framed with jokes. No longer needed to be justified. It simply existed, and that was enough. What made this moment even more powerful was the context. This wasn't their debut. This wasn't a time of intense promotions. This was a period in which BTS and its members had endured the highest levels of pressure, hiatuses, military service, and a storm of public opinion. If, after all that, Jimin and Jungkook still chose to appear this close, then there was clearly something unshakable between them. For some, it evoked warmth. For others, confusion. And for a handful, discomfort, because genuine closeness always provokes a reaction. Especially when it can't be controlled by narrative, and can't be broken by cold logic alone. The hand-holding became a symbol. Not a symbol of a romantic relationship that needed to be announced, but a symbol of the courage to not pull away. The courage to not hide the security found in someone. And if we look closer, it's not just their hands that are holding each other. Their body language speaks volumes too. The way Jungkook leaned in slightly. The way Jimin didn't rush to let go. The way the two remained in sync even after the camera moved away. All those small details formed one big picture. This wasn't a staged moment. It's no surprise that afterward, fans recalled many pieces of the past. A lingering stare. A jealous reaction that was too obvious. A small, consistent protectiveness. It all now felt like puzzle pieces slowly falling into place. But Jikook, as usual, didn't force anyone to believe. They didn't demand approval. They simply moved on, continued being together, and let the world interpret as it pleased. Perhaps because by this point, they already knew love in any form doesn't always need to be announced. Comfort doesn't always need to be explained. And happiness doesn't have to conform to public expectations. The hand-holding had been broken. The cameras were off, but the effect was still palpable. It left a lasting impression. Jikook was no longer playing it safe as he once did. And if anyone still asks, what does all this mean? Perhaps the answer isn't about the definition of a relationship, but rather about one simple yet powerful attitude. We choose each other, even as the world watches. And for those who aren't ready to accept it, yes, just like the silent message from the beginning. Jealous? Keep being jealous. And precisely after all that, a deeper layer of emotion emerged, one that usually goes unnoticed, but is obvious to those who are truly paying attention. Because what's most interesting about that hand-holding moment isn't just what they see, but what they don't do. They don't look for a reaction. They don't turn to look.